Hello, everyone. On behalf of the National Scholarship Providers Association and AcademicWorks, I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. We've got about 15 people on the line so far and are expecting more, so they should trickle in as we go along, but for those of you who are here and ready, we will be respectful of your time and get started. We thank you all for being here today. My name is Diana Hunter, and I'm the Membership and Program Manager for the National Scholarship Providers Association. We are also very excited to have AcademicWorks on the line with us today. They are giving our first Affiliate Plus webinar, and we appreciate their support of the NSPA. To give you a little bit of background, the NSPA has about 20 affiliate members who support our mission and play a vital role in providing solutions to the various technological, administrative, and outreach needs of scholarship providers. The NSPA does not recommend or endorse one service provider over another, and we encourage you to choose vendors and products that meet your specific needs. That being said, AcademicWorks has been a member of the NSPA for several years, and we're very happy to give you this opportunity to learn more about the products and services that AcademicWorks provides. Our presenter today is Brandon Phipps. He is the co-founder and CEO of AcademicWorks, which is a company dedicated to providing scholarship management solutions for foundations and colleges. Brandon has spent his entire career providing technology solutions for higher education. And prior to co-founding AcademicWorks, Brandon worked at both People Admin and Academic Software, and he lives in Austin, Texas with his family. He's a graduate of Texas A&M University. And before I turn it over to Brandon, I want to go over a few quick housekeeping items. First, all attendees will be muted for the entire webinar, so there's no need for a microphone, but you can submit questions using the question function in your webinar console, and we'll take some time throughout the webinar to answer those. So as those come up, go ahead and submit those. And you can do that in your webinar console, which you may need to expand to view all of the functions, and you can do that by clicking the orange arrow that should be in the top right-hand screen corner of your screen. If the arrow is pointing right, your console is already expanded. If it's pointing left, you can go ahead and click that and expand the console. Once your console is expanded, you will see functions for chatting and asking questions. So just click the little plus symbol on those to expand those options. And if you want to keep your control panel open for the duration of the webinar, if you open your console and then go to the View option in the menu at the top, and then unclick Hide Control Panel, or unclick Auto Hide the control panel, and that will keep that open for the duration of the webinar. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand things over to Brandon.
Great. Thank you, Diana. I appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for taking the time to learn a little bit more today about AcademicWorks. As Diana mentioned, AcademicWorks, we're proud to be an affiliate partner with NSPA for several years now. AcademicWorks, we're an Austin, Texas-based company. We specialize in providing scholarship management solutions specifically for foundations and institutions of higher education. What we're going to do today during today's webinar is just go through a brief background on the company, a little bit about the products that we offer, and then we'll jump over into a demonstration. We do have a pretty varied audience today. I know everybody provides scholarships in one form or fashion. However, some of you might be foundations where you have one scholarship fund and your challenges revolve more around reviewer assignments, perhaps even scholarship renewals. Some of you may be community foundations or foundations with multiple scholarship opportunities, and you may have challenges facing you around the matching process of matching students with relevant opportunities, ensuring that students are qualified for the scholarships that they're being applied to or applying for. And some of you I know we have a few institutions of higher education on the line as well, where you're probably looking for means to integrate your scholarship management solution with your student information system to be able to pull relevant information on students. And we'll try and cover all of those various areas during today's presentation and just talk a little bit about how AcademicWorks addresses those three distinct groups. Quick background on AcademicWorks. Myself and the two other co-founders, we founded AcademicWorks in 2010. We have a combined 50 years experience in providing a variety of different online systems specifically for higher education and nonprofits. All of the systems that we offer, all of the solutions that we'll show you today, are what they refer to as software as a service, meaning that there's no hardware or software that you need to install or maintain on the client side. We basically manage everything on behalf of all of the clients that we work with out of one of the largest hosting providers in the world, Amazon Web Services. We've also worked very hard to make sure that all of the systems we provide are fully compliant with Section 508 guidelines, ensuring that individuals using devices for the impaired are able to properly navigate the site, complete applications online, and that our systems are as accessible as possible on a variety of different platforms, including Macs, PCs, even your tablet devices, and browsers as well. The system that we'll show you today, AcademicWorks, we charge clients an annual maintenance fee that includes the hosting of the system, upgrades, technical support, and also any system change requests. However, one of the unique facets of the system are that just about any of the changes that can be applied to the system by us at AcademicWorks can also be modified by the clients as well. So you can change your application fields, modify your email templates, change the scoring and rating criteria. You can even update the site graphics using an intuitive administrative interface. And those can all be changed on a per fund basis. So if you have a certain scholarship fund that has different review or rating criteria than another, even a different deadline date, you can actually accommodate multiple funds with varying criteria, different application requirements, different evaluative criteria, all within the confines of one system. Implementation for AcademicWorks is pretty quick. Typically takes us about 45 to 60 days to get a client up and running. Much quicker, obviously, for those of you that have one scholarship fund and one set of selection criteria compared to institutions that may have 400 or 500 or foundations that have several hundred different scholarship funds. Currently working with about 125 different institutions and foundations around the country, all of which have joined us over the past 18 months. About a third of our current clients have actually converted from competing scholarship management solutions due to a variety of different functional and technical advantages. Some of the private and community foundations that we work with include organizations such as the St. Louis Graduates, who I believe is on the call today, Arizona Community Foundation, Dayton Foundation, American Indian Graduate Center, Cherokee Nation and Cherokee Nation Foundation, Communities Foundation of Texas, to name a few. We also work with a large number of institutions of higher education. Some of the larger campuses around the country include institutions like Florida International University, University of North Texas, DePaul, UC San Diego, Auburn University, Fresno State University, to name a few. But our clients do vary in size from organizations that collect as few as 100 scholarship applications per year and manage 1 or 2 funds to institutions that have over 38,000 students. They collect 10,000 scholarship applications and have over 1,000 scholarship funds that they manage through our system. In terms of the scope of AcademicWorks, there's 2 specific modules that we'll talk about today. The first one being scholarship management. AcademicWorks, for those of you that have multiple scholarship funds, we do have the ability to create a branded scholarship portal that current or prospective students or any of the applicants can search through to see relevant scholarships that may match their criteria. The search options on that site are configured on a client-by-client basis, so you tell us what you want those to be. So students could search for scholarships by the high school they attend, student activities that they're involved with, student groups that they're involved with, the institution that they may wish to attend after high school graduation. If it's an institution of higher ed, students could search for scholarships based upon their major or discipline or classification. You also have the ability, for those of you that have a lot of donor-funded scholarships, you can create different donor profile pages to recognize your scholarship donors. So those are pages of information that can include a picture of the donor, donor description or biography, and even things like thank you letters or student success stories that you may want to profile. And they're used primarily to recognize the scholarship donors. Students that are interested in a particular scholarship or interested in applying in general, they're prompted initially to complete a scholarship application form. And that application form we configure for the needs of each individual institution or foundation that we work with. For institutions of higher education, we do have the ability to import student data from their student information system on a nightly basis. AcademicWorks is partnered with both Oracle PeopleSoft as well as Ellucian and can provide convenient integration to pull information from a campus's existing student information system. If you are a foundation, the students would simply complete that general scholarship application, and they can be automatically matched to any scholarships within the system if you do have multiple scholarship funds. Or if you have one scholarship fund, based on the student's application, the system can determine whether the student meets the minimum qualification criteria for that individual fund. For those of you that have multiple scholarship funds, the system can actually look at a student's application information, also student imported data if you're a institution of higher ed, and use that combination of information to automatically match and apply students to any scholarships that they're eligible for. So students don't necessarily have to click on each scholarship that they want to be considered for. The system looks at their application data and can automatically apply them wherever appropriate. If you do have certain funds that have requirements beyond what's on your general application form, students can receive a recommended list of scholarships or a list of suggestions and be asked to complete additional essay questions, additional letters of reference that might be unique to those individual scholarship funds. For most of our customers that have multiple scholarships, about 80% or 90% of their scholarships become auto-apply, and then there's usually 10 to 20% that are suggested. If you have other foundations that you work very closely with, or just other funds that you want students to know about, it could be a local Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, or a local high school that manages their own funds, those can be listed alongside your own on the external scholarships page. Once students have been matched to the various scholarships, you can allow committee members to log in and review and rate students online as well. And there's a number of different methodologies we can use in terms of setting up your rating and review process. Reviewers within AcademicWorks can actually be assigned automatically. So you don't have to manually pick which reviewers you want to look at which students. There's two different ways that you can assign reviewers in the system. If you have multiple scholarship funds and a student qualified for 10 of those funds, for example, you could either have the student reviewed 10 times, so they're being reviewed based upon their applications, or you can have the student reviewed once as an applicant and have that score automatically carry down to all of the scholarships that a student is eligible for. If you have multiple reviewers, you can actually pre-assign how many times a different student needs to be reviewed. The system will automatically look at your reviewers and you can create different rules governing who should be reviewing which students within the system, and also how many times that student needs to be reviewed. So if you have a process whereby you have 30 different reviewers in your committees or committee and you want each student reviewed 3 times, you can provide those rules within the system, and the system will automatically conduct those reviewer assignments to ensure that each student is reviewed 3 times. If you have a reviewer that backs out, the system will rebalance the workload across all 30 of those reviewers automatically. You can even designate that specific students or certain types of students are going to be reviewed by certain reviewers automatically based upon attributes within their application. So a lot of flexibility in the way that reviewers can be assigned within the system. Once the reviewers have rated the students, the system can actually add together all of the different reviewer scores and allow the administrator to make an award within the system. If you do have multiple scholarship funds, the system can actually show you the fund balance for each one of those funds and automatically deduct as you're committing funds out of that particular fund set. So once you basically exhaust the funds for a particular scholarship, the system will give you a warning message to prevent you from over-awarding out of that specific fund. The students can receive an email notification letting them know that they received a scholarship award, and all of those notifications can either go out of the system as the awards are being made, or you can queue up all of those notifications and send them all at once. So if you have a very prestigious nationally competitive scholarship award, you may not want individual students being notified on different times, so you can queue up all of your notifications and notify everyone at once. Or if you have an awards banquet that you may make student awards at, you can queue up those notifications and have them go out after you formally presented that award to the student. When students receive an award, you can determine on a fund-by-fund basis whether you want to collect any post-acceptance documentation from the student. So if you require a thank you letter or biography or personal statement from the student or even a picture, you can provide the student with a questionnaire that they need to respond to as part of the award acceptance process, and you can designate whether the fields in that questionnaire are going to be required or not. So if a student does not complete those required fields, their award would not be marked as accepted, and you can produce a report showing which awards have been accepted and which ones have not. And I wanted to stop just briefly in case there were any questions from the audience.
Brandon, we don't have any questions so far, but again, a reminder, if you do have questions, we'll stop another time or two throughout the webinar, and then at the end, and you can submit questions using the question function in your webinar console, and we'll be happy to answer those.
And Diane, I'll also try and speak up a little bit. I got your note about some folks having difficulty hearing. Am I coming through a little bit louder now?
I can hear you okay. If others are having trouble hearing Brandon, if you want to just send me a private message in the chat function, I'll be happy to relay that information to him.
And we're also recording this webinar. We can provide you with a recorded copy at the conclusion as well. We'll continue on then if there's no questions. The second module we wanted to talk about is something new that AcademicWorks just recently released. And this module is what's referred to as award management. For foundations that may have renewable scholarship awards, the award management module allows you to track those award renewals over multiple scholarship cycles. So when you make an initial award to a student, you can designate how many terms or periods that award is going to be valid for. And you can also automate much of the process associated with collecting information required to determine whether a student is still eligible for that particular renewal. So just as an example, if you have a scholarship renewable award and it's going to be given out over a period of, say, 4 years, whenever that first renewal term approaches, you have the ability to have the system automatically send the student a notification that it's time for them to go in and renew their award. The student can submit any required documentation online. You'll be able to review all of the student's required documentation in terms of a transcript or progress essay or any other information that you would like to collect. Once you validate that the student is still in compliance with the award requirements, you can actually approve that student's award for that particular cycle. And that process can automatically continue on throughout the entire term of that renewable award. So for the second and third renewal term, those notifications would actually go out automatically as well. And for a large number of our customers, they actually have significantly more workload in the scholarship renewal process than they actually have in the making initial awards. So the renewable award function allows you to not only see the history of all of the money that's gone to a particular student over time, but to request the documentation that you need from the student automatically instead of having to track them down via mailings, letters, and phone calls. For institutions of higher education, we are adding in the ability in the April-May timeframe to automatically look at a student's data record within their student information system via DataTel, Banner, or PeopleSoft, and determine whether or not that student is remaining in compliance with those award requirements. So if a student fell out of compliance with the award requirements, they would be marked as not eligible within the AcademicWorks system. Some of the unique functions and features associated with AcademicWorks is that for those of you that do have multiple scholarship opportunities, we support both the ability to automatically apply students to scholarships or allow them to specifically apply for scholarships that require information beyond what's on the general application form. You can actually modify your scholarship deadline dates, application questions, rating criteria, what the student needs to submit in terms of award acceptance on a per fund basis within the system. You can also set up reviewer assignments automatically using configurable rules. You can also choose to review students by their application for each individual scholarship, or you can give the applicant an overall review score and have that score carry down to any scholarships that a student is eligible for. You can also request renewal documentation from students receiving recurring or renewable scholarship awards. The information that you collect, including their application, reviewer ratings, award amount, is automatically archived within our system for audit purposes. So we don't delete anything out of your scholarship system, and you can go back and review information on prior awards. For those of you that are institutions of higher education, we do also offer convenient integration with your campus's student information system. In terms of implementation of AcademicWorks, we initially ask you for a listing of all of your current scholarship opportunities and fund criteria in an Excel spreadsheet. We actually import those scholarships directly into the system on your behalf. We also look at your fund criteria to make a recommendation of what fields to include in your application form. Once we've created that list of fields, if you are going to be importing data from some other location, in terms of student record data, we'd ask you for a sample file. We'd set the qualification criteria with you on each one of your scholarship opportunities, conduct training, and schedule a time for go live. And all in, that implementation process is usually about 45 to 60 days in duration. And I'll stop just briefly to see if there's any questions.
Brandon, we still haven't had any questions come in. Oh wait, one just came in. Does AcademicWorks have the ability to integrate with a CRM such as Nation Builder?
Depends on the nature of the integration. We do provide reports within the AcademicWorks system showing all of the students that received scholarship funds along with all of their contact data. So some of our clients will take that CSV export and they'll use that to load into their customer relationship management system.
Great, thank you. And again, go ahead and submit your questions in the question console. Oh, we've got one more here. How is pricing structured?
We price based upon the number of scholarship funds that you have for foundations. For institutions of higher education, we price based upon your student population along with the number of funds that you have.
Great.
So there is a slight difference in cost in terms of whether the system is going to be integrated for a college or university. It's a little bit more expensive than if it's a standalone system for a community or a private foundation.
Thank you. And for our attendees, we will definitely provide Brandon's contact information to you, and he, I'm sure, would be happy to give you, an exact quote on pricing for setting up a system for your program.
Absolutely. And since we have such a varied audience today, if you wanted to have an individual demonstration of the system at any point in time, please let us know to kind of speak to your individual or specific process. Since we have both both private foundations, community foundations, and colleges and universities, it is a pretty wide audience. In terms of the AcademicWorks system, we can provide a searchable scholarship website for those of you that have multiple scholarship opportunities. So if you do have multiple scholarships within that you manage, you can allow students or applicants to search through those scholarships using any criteria that you define. So students could search by their student activities, classification, their major, the high school they attended. It's really up to you in terms of what you want those search options to be. Or they can search by keyword and see a listing of all of the scholarships that match their search. If I click on a specific scholarship, I can read all the requirements associated with that fund. Click where it says donor and read more information about that donor that's sponsoring the scholarship. So you can have a picture of the donor, a donor biography, impact statements, or student thank you letters can also be published to that donor's portal page as well. We also allow you, if you do have multiple funds, to create a donor wall where you can see a listing of all of the different donors that have sponsored scholarships. And this wall rotates automatically so that new donors pop up to the top. Each donor page has its own specific URL to help recognize the donors. And you certainly don't have to have a profile page for each one of your donors, but a lot of our foundations find it beneficial in terms of recognition. If you're an individual or a private foundation, you may only have one scholarship fund. You certainly don't have to have a scholarship search page at all. It's more of a landing page where students go to complete their general application. If students are interested in any of the scholarships that they see, they're first prompted to go in and complete their general scholarship application form. The application form can include any pieces of information that you'd like, so you can have single or multi-select questions, documents that they're requested or required to upload, short and long text or essay questions. You can even have the student request references, so they can enter in the name and the email address of the individual providing a reference on their behalf. The system will automatically email that reference provider and ask that they submit a confidential letter of reference on behalf of the student. Each field can also have contextual help, which certainly helps knock down the number of phone calls that you might receive from applicants during the application process. And you can modify that contextual help at any time. For institutions of higher education, we can also add in a student record tab that shows all of the data that you're importing from their student information system. That application information and can be combined with that student record data and used to automatically match and apply the students to any scholarships they might be eligible for. Or if you only have one scholarship fund, it can be used to determine whether the student meets the minimum qualification criteria for that one fund. So at the conclusion of the application process, a student would get a message back from the system that tells them, we've received your application. They'd get a checkbox letting them know that their application is complete, and the system could tell them that they'll be considered for all scholarship opportunities that they're eligible for. If you do have very unique funds that have more explicit criteria, the system can show the student a recommended list of scholarships that might require information beyond what's on that general application form. If a student receives a scholarship award, they get an email from the system prompting them to log in, take a look at that award online. They can review all of the terms and conditions associated with that award. So you can notify the student if they need to attend an awards banquet, if they need to submit a thank you letter as part of that award acceptance process. If you do require a thank you letter from the students or any other documentation as part of either the initial award process or a recurring award process, the students can be required to complete that information as part of the acceptance of that award. So in this particular case, the student's being asked to complete a thank you letter for the donor, RSVP for a luncheon, and asked to confirm that they do meet all of the requirements associated with the award. They can also upload documents, so if you prefer to have a handwritten thank you letter for some of your donors, you can certainly request that from the student to have them scan that in as a PDF. And you can change what's requested from students on a fund-by-fund basis. So if you do have multiple funds, you may have some where the donors are still around and they would like to receive a thank you letter. You may have some where the donors are no longer or deceased and the students don't need to submit additional documentation. For the renewal process, you may be asking students to upload a copy of their transcript, to submit a progress essay or any other documentation. So this form could be different, but the process would be the same. The student would receive a notification that it's time for them to go in and submit that renewal documentation. They'd log into their account using their username and password and submit all of that information online. Any questions at all before we continue on?
Brandon, yes, we've had a number of questions come in, so I will just start at the top with those. One of our attendees wants to know if they choose to turn off the auto apply option, will students still get a list of recommended scholarships that they qualify for so that they can complete those applications or manually for those recommended scholarships?
Yes, you can set the system up such that a student only receives recommended scholarships based on their general application. The process would be the same. They'd still fill out that general application. They would just immediately be taken to the recommended tab within the system and asked to respond to any additional questions or submit their information specifically for those individual opportunities.
Great, thank you. And we've got a couple of questions here related to recommendations and recommenders. Is there a method of verification for recommendations? And is the recommendation attached to the applicant's record?
The recommendation is attached to the applicant's record. In terms of verification, you do have the email address that the applicant had submitted or used in the reference providing process. So it's pretty easy to check and see whether it's one that is valid for that recommender or whether it's one that the student kind of spoofed, so to speak, in order to receive that letter of recommendation. Thank
you. And also related to that, can you show us what the page looks like from the recommender's perspective?
Yes, we do. So when a recommender logs into the system, the first time they log in, they'll create a password for themselves. In many cases, you often have the same reference providers that receive multiple requests from students, especially for colleges or universities or some of our community foundations. The same people get hit up 8, 10, 12 times from students. So what we do is whenever that recommender or reference provider logs into the system, we show them all of the reference requests that they need to fulfill. It'll show them the ones that they've submitted, and they can go back and see what they submitted on each student. And it'll show them the ones that have yet to be submitted, and they just can go in and begin that process. In terms of the information requested from a reference provider, that can be varied as well. So you can actually change on a fund-by-fund basis what information you wanted to request. You could ask the reference providers to submit, answer or respond to a questionnaire about the student, or rate the student on different criteria, or upload a more traditional letter of reference.
Great. And a few more questions. Do you provide any publicity services for the scholarships you service? This particular attendee has found that the sort of publicizing outreach piece of things is the most difficult part of getting qualified applicants.
We don't, outside of giving you the landing page where you can kind of point students to. So we don't, we're not a scholarship aggregator by any stretch. We really just provide the system and tools to allow the foundations and institutions we work with to be more efficient in their both matching, selection, and renewal processes.
Thank you, Brandon. And to Adrian, I can send you a list of some scholarship aggregators and search sites that may be helpful in spreading the word about your scholarship. Let's see. Another attendee is asking if they can add new sections to the application form in addition to the personal information student record section. She's wanting to know if she can also add a section for financial information or self-appraisal.
You can add any new fields to the system that you choose. The fields appear in line on one screen, which helps from a standpoint of accessibility compliance to ensure that individuals using devices for the impaired are able to properly navigate the system. So if you wanted to add a new field, you simply tell the system the name of that field, and you can choose where that field is going to appear. Is it one that's going to be on the general application? If you're an institution of higher education, are you going to be importing that from your student information system? Or you can create certain fields that are added to a library or a bank of questions and used on some scholarships but not on others. You can also choose whether this field is going to be one that is going to be asked of the applicant, you the administrator, an outside reference provider, or a reviewer. And is this field, what type of field is it going to be? Single or multi-select question, document upload, or a formatted field. Once the field is created, you can tell the system where you want that field to show up. So you can see your current application form, and you can move fields around just by dragging and dropping them wherever you want them to go. So I could make a field required as well just by checking off the requirement option on there. So really easy to manipulate the application form to make changes as you continue to grow and evolve your process.
Great, thank you. I think you maybe touched on this a little bit before. Someone else is asking, as administrators, are they able to go into each account each year to add budget information for each award?
Yeah, actually, when you set up an award within AcademicWorks, we'll take a quick look at how that's done. During the implementation process, we actually import all of your scholarship descriptions, titles, fund ID code information for you. But if you have a new scholarship that's created after the fact, you simply enter in the name of that scholarship fund, choose whether it's one that's automatically going to match students if they meet the requirements, or is it one that the student has to specifically apply to in order to be considered. Or you could mark a scholarship as a third-party scholarship or external, in which case you just enter the URL of where students need to go in order to apply. You can enter in the description for that specific fund if you choose. Let's put that out there. Jump over to a different page. And once you have some of the other attributes on the scholarship fund itself, you can choose whether you were going to require a thank you letter or a post-acceptance document as part of that process. Who's responsible for this particular scholarship fund? So if you have multiple administrators or departmental administrators, you can make an assignment of who's going to be conducting or assigning the reviewers. And you also have a field for an available fund amount. So as you're making awards, the system will automatically deduct from this available fund amount and tell you once you've exceeded the amount of money available in that fund. Where it says offer details, whatever is entered in there is what the student will see when they go to accept this award online. And each fund can have its own start date. That's the first day a student would be matched to this scholarship. Its own end date, that's the last day a student would be matched or considered for this particular fund. And the day the reviewers can actually log in and begin reviewing or rating students online. So your funds, if you have multiple scholarships, can have different start and end dates associated with them. Students could put an application on file and be matched as new funds open up and become available. Finally, there's an archive date where you're basically saying that you're done awarding out of this fund for this particular cycle. We don't delete anything out of your system. We keep that on file for as long as you tell us to. So you can always go back and see what applicants were considered for a scholarship, how they were rated by the review committee, who was awarded in prior years. At the end of each scholarship cycle, we can actually clone all of your scholarship opportunities en masse and basically repost them without you having to reinvent the wheel each year. Once you create a scholarship, you can assign the qualifying criteria that determine which students are eligible for which funds. So I can use any piece of information on the application, or if you are importing data as an institution of higher education, you can actually use that import data as well. So I could say that I only want to look at match students who go to a certain high school, for example, and add that as a qualifier. Or I only want to see students that have a certain EFC number less than $5,000, for example. So in this instance, a student would need to meet all three of these criteria in order to be considered or matched to this scholarship opportunity. You can, if you have selected that you want to have a post-acceptance documents collected from the student, you can choose what pieces of information you want to collect from the student. And then once you publish the scholarship, you'll see the system, if it's an auto-matching opportunity, will immediately generate a list of the eligible applicants that meet the minimum qualification criteria for this fund. So you can go through, if you have 500 students that match this particular scholarship opportunity, you might further sort or filter them based upon other attributes like GPA or SAT or ACT score or need. Or you may have donor preferred qualifications where a donor has said, I'd like a student from a certain high school, for example. And you can filter to see if there's any students that exactly match that donor's preference and forward just those students onto the committee for review. Your reviewers will be able to log into the system. They'd only be able to see the scholarships or the students that they're specifically assigned to. When they go into review a particular student, they can bring up a copy of that student's application information, any document attachments, and they can rate that student using whatever scoring rubric that you've defined. And that scoring rubric can either be the same for all of your opportunities if you have multiple scholarships, or it could be different for each one. The system can automatically add together all of the different reviewer scores and place them on a 100-point scale. It can also show you, of the reviewers that were assigned to review a specific student, how many have actually completed their reviews of the assigned reviewers, and you can drill down and see which ones have and have not specifically completed their reviews for certain students. You can sort based upon those reviewer scores and bring the applicants that scored the highest to the top of the list. You can also see very easily whether this student has already received an award. So even though a student scored the highest, I might move to the next student in line to make an offer or make an award. When you make an award, you can again review the student's application information. The system will show you how much money is available in any particular scholarship fund. You can make an offer and either tell the system that you want the student to receive the notification immediately, or you can queue up all those notifications and release them all at once. And I'll stop briefly to see if there's any questions at all.
Great, thanks, Brandon. Sounds like there are a couple options for this, but students submitting essays, is there the option to upload like a Word document or PDF, or are students typing or copying and pasting directly into the application form?
It's really up to the client. So on the application form, you can either give students the ability to cut or type directly into the system itself, an essay response, or you can have them upload a document at your discretion.
Great. And then we have another question about workflows. Can workflows be created so that applications are designated to a particular reviewer or group of reviewers?
Yes, they can. So you can actually use attributes off of the application form to designate an applicant to a specific reviewer or group of reviewers. So within the system, you can actually go in and create a reviewer group. You can assign attributes to that specific reviewer group and have students automatically funnel to that reviewer group. So that could be things like a student's major or the high school they attended, for example. If you have different high schools reviewing their own students and providing you with recommendations, you could route those applications to that high school committee, so to speak, for review. Or if you have certain people on your review committee that are from certain disciplines or affiliated with certain organizations, you could route automatically students to that specific review committee.
Great. Another question about data validation. Is it possible to validate various GPA values and things such as the minimum, maximum word length for essays?
GPA values and things like that for institutions of higher education, we can actually import those data fields directly from their student information system. So instead of asking the students to complete that information, just import it from an outside source. In terms of validating information that's been entered by the students, we can give you, the administrator, the ability to augment or modify what the student has entered in based upon a review of their transcript. Or we can add certain administrative fields where you actually review the transcript and enter in the value or GPA on behalf of the student. We don't currently have the ability to limit the size of an essay response, however.
Okay. So that's maybe something that a reviewer could look for in the application process. And another question that is one that wasn't submitted directly today, but that has come up and gone out on our email system this week is about security and maintaining student data and things like that.
In terms of the maintenance of student data, it's explicit in the AcademicWorks agreement that we don't own any of the information that's entered into the system. So for all of our college and university customers, we're actually a FERPA agent of the institution. For the foundations that we work with, you're correct in that there are certain FERPA compliance standards that you do have to meet in order to host student data, protect that information properly. We host all of our systems with Amazon Web Services, which is one of the largest and most well-respected hosting facilities in the world. All of the transactions via AcademicWorks are encrypted, so they're secure in terms of the information students are submitting. And our Amazon hosting environment also has numerous protections to prevent external intrusion, to keep that data store safe and secure, to prevent exposure of student information. So I think you'll find that the security safeguards that we take and can afford to put in place usually far exceed what an individual foundation or institution would be able to do for a similar system if they were building it in-house.
Great, thanks. And another question related to that, are there different access levels or phases for review so that reviewers are not necessarily viewing all student information, but maybe just the pieces that they need?
Sure. For any piece of information within the system, so every data field that we set up, you can actually tell the system whether or not you want that field to be something that is visible to a reviewer. So if you do want that field to be visible, you check off, can reviewers see this? If you don't, you just off-check it. So we do have some clients that conduct more confidential reviews, where they don't allow reviewers to see student name, email address, contact info. They redact that information from the purview of the reviewers.
Great. And as far as sort of reporting and next levels, are there sort of levels, I guess, such as, you know, the applications, all applications are scored by reviewers, and then the top 100 applicants then go to an interview process, and then from there, you know, the interview scores are uploaded. Are there capabilities for sort of these different pieces of the selection process?
Yes, you can have a multi-stage review process within AcademicWorks where students might receive an initial score. So they're scored once by kind of a general reviewer or general group of reviewers, given an overall score. And then individually for a specific scholarship, they could be reviewed yet again. And you can determine on a fund-by-fund basis whether you want to carry that general score forward or whether you want to cut it away, so to speak, and solely go with the individual review score once that cut has been made.
Great. And still sort of related to the reviewing and selection process, are reviewers able to see the responses of other reviewers? So if an application is being reviewed by multiple people, are they able to see each other's scores, or is that
there's a role within the system of reviewer, and then there's a role of what's referred to as an opportunity administrator. The opportunity administrator is designed to be kind of like a committee chair, for example. So they can actually see all of the different reviewer ratings, and they can see the reviewer comments as well, but the individual reviewers cannot. So if you did want to kind of share that information among the group, it would have to be facilitated through the opportunity administrator or the system administrator.
Thank you. And a question about how the system deals with duplicate applications if a student submits multiple applications even for the same scholarship.
For most of the customers that we work with, they're using our auto matching function within the system. So a student wouldn't be submitting specifically for an individual scholarship. They'd be creating an application, and they'd be automatically matched against all of the funds that they're eligible for. We don't necessarily, outside of our college and university customers, if they're using external authentication, they might be using a student's existing credentials to log in which case it would prevent duplication automatically. But we can key off of things like if you wanted to have the student log in with their email address, for example, it would prevent the same student from using the same email address as the user name. But we don't have a foolproof method to prevent a student from coming back in and submitting using a different email address all over again. You could manage those accounts within the system and kind of deactivate them, but we couldn't prevent it from occurring.
Thank you. And we have a couple questions, people wanting some more detail on your pricing structure. So I don't know if there's a range that you can give or how you'd like to address that.
Sure. I can give a broad range. We're happy to provide individual pricing for anybody in the call. If you wanted to email us after the call, we can put together an individual pricing proposal for you. But our pricing starts as little as $4,000 per year with an implementation fee of a one-time fee of $3,000. But it can range much higher than that for larger integrated institutions of higher education or much larger foundations. We don't base pricing on the number of applications you receive. We really base it on the number of scholarship funds that you manage combined with either the student enrollment or the estimate of the number of applications that you get.
Great, thank you. And that is all the questions I have on my end. If folks have additional questions, go ahead and type those in. And as I mentioned before, we'll get you contact information for AcademicWorks, and you can also follow up with them directly if you have specific scenarios or other questions.
One final thing that we'll show before we, I know we're heading in on our time frame here, but there's a number of different reports that are available within the system. This is a report showing all of the awards that were given out, including the name of the award, the fund ID code, the amount of money that was awarded, and every piece of information on the student that received that award. Within the system, clients can easily export out all of the awards that were given. They can export out all of the users within the system into a CSV file that can easily be opened in Microsoft Excel. So if you are doing roll-up reporting to show how many students received scholarships from a specific discipline, or how many students received scholarships for a certain major or high school, all of that information can be derived from this one report. In terms of system setup, as I mentioned earlier, as part of our annual maintenance fee, we can make changes on behalf of a customer, but you can also go in and make changes yourself, even to things like the look and feel of your web page, the graphic that appears at the top, your logo, the title of your site, the email address that applicants see when they go into or when they receive communication from the system, the links that appear on the bottom of the page. All of the email templates that are stored within the system can be modified by the client, and you can even change the fields that are incorporated within your application form yourself without having to contact us at all. As I mentioned earlier, we're happy to coordinate an individual presentation, so if you want to discuss in more detail how the system would fit with your specific application and review process, or if you are an institution of higher education and you're using a student information system, we're happy to show you in terms of some of the integration touch points and discuss those in further detail. Just let us know.
Great, Brandon. We haven't had any more questions. Oh, I spoke too soon. We have one last question, or even if there are several more, we're happy to take those. Can you talk a little bit about why organizations have switched to AcademicWorks from other competitors? Sort of what is unique about your product?
Sure. Some of the functional differences include the ability for students to be either automatically applied to scholarships or to ask students to complete additional information on a fund-by-fund basis. So a lot of the other systems that are out there are driven more application form driven, meaning that all of the attributes for a scholarship process have to be the same across all of your funds. With AcademicWorks, we're fund-centric, meaning that on a fund-by-fund basis, you're able to change the deadline dates, the information that's requested, the rating criteria that's used by your review committee, things like thank you letters as well. You'll also see that the scope of our system is much broader than any of the other solutions that are out there. We do touch on areas of donor relations through our donor profile pages, the ability to collect thank you letters from students, and with the award management module, the ability for institutions not only to collect recurring renewal forms, but to track an award from the initial award period all the way through the life cycle of that award for recurring awards, and collect information and keep all of that information on file for audit and archive purposes. You'll also see in terms of the accessibility of the system, we put a lot of thought into the user experience for applicants and for reviewers to ensure that individuals using devices for the impaired can access the site, that the site is easy to navigate and follows kind of the best practice principles for web development. We actually have a user experience consultant on our development staff that does nothing but kind of think about the user experience for applicants and reviewers.
Great. We have not had any other questions come in the last minute or so. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, Brandon?
No, I think that's it. Diana, I just wanted to say thank you for coordinating today's presentation. As I mentioned, we're happy to provide any additional information, pricing proposals, or individual demonstrations for anyone interested in learning more.
Great. Well, thank you, Brandon. And again, we really appreciate AcademicWorks' support of the NSPA and involvement in our work and the work that you do to make the life of scholarship providers a little bit easier. And again, I will send out a follow-up email to all of our attendees with how you can get in touch with AcademicWorks and any additional information. So you can be watching for that and follow up with Brandon and his team directly for more information.
Great. Thank you, Diana. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks everyone for being on the call today. And our next webinar will be in March on donor relations. So keep an eye out for that information.